Hey guys, Mr. Decker here. This is Computer Science Discoveries. We're in Unit 6 and we're looking at Lesson 7 on analog input here. I've got my circuit playground and I'm ready to go. All right, so sensor experiment. We're on bubble 1. Run the program to the right and experiment with your board. Try interacting with your board in many different ways to figure out what each sensor might be. As you experiment with each sensor, discuss with a neighbor. What does this sensor measure? What is its maximum value? And what is the minimum value? All right, let's take a look at this. So we'll run it. Oh, okay. Apparently I need to refresh. Okay. Run. Okay. Woo. All right, we're getting all kinds of readings here. So let's see what these different sensors do. I know that I've got a light sensor, a sound sensor, and a noise sensor, sound sensor, light sensor, and one more sensor. What is it? Temperature sensor? That's right. Okay, so on this board, right, you've got again a sound sensor, light sensor, temperature sensor. So let's try and decide which one's which. So if I'm talking really close to this, will it make big number changes? If I cover it, okay. So I'm thinking sensor 1 is my light sensor because right now I'm covering my board. So sensor 1 is definitely the light sensor. Sensor 2, let's see. Okay, sensor 3 is definitely the sound sensor. I just blew on it. And if I talk really close to it, you can see that number change a lot. Okay, and then so sensor 3 is the sound sensor. Sensor 1 is the light sensor. I'm running out of words here. Light sensor, sound sensor, temperature sensor. So sensor 2 must be temperature. And if you look at the board really closely, I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's a tiny little thermometer there, kind of right below that finger. And if you put your finger on it or cover it, it kind of stabilizes the number on sensor 2 because it's getting a temperature reading off of my thumb right now. If I let go, it goes all over the place. Okay, so we've got light sensor, temperature sensor, sound sensor. Cool. Let's finish. Let's continue. We're on bubble 2. Let me version history mine, and I'm going to move myself up here. All right, so it says reading the sound sensor. The sound sensor .value block allows you to get the current sound sensor reading. Do this. In this app, we've already added a text label with the ID sound value. Using the sound sensor .value block, display the value of the sound sensor. Okay, so we're going to build this, it looks like. So you can drag the sound sensor .value block directly into any other block where you could type a value instead. All right, so let's grab set property. We're going to set the ID to sound value. So it's going to read out the temperature right here. I want it to display as text on the screen, and in the circuit drawer, we'll grab sound sensor.value. So it's going to read the sound on here. So run 521. So let me see if I'm like humming next to this, right? If it will change the readout. So reset. 515. Okay. If I blow on it. Yeah, that made a big difference. All right, let's finish and continue. All right, light sensor updates. This app is very similar to the last, but we've added a button. Oh, let me version history. I keep forgetting to do that. I went through this lesson right before attempting to make this video. So this app is very similar to the last, but we've added a button with the ID update button. Okay, so here's the update button. Write a program that displays the current value of the light sensor every time the update button is clicked. Okay. So we're going to write a program that displays the current value of the light sensor every time the update button is clicked. Do this. Use an event handler to update the text of light value using the light sensor.value block. So every time, okay, so on event, update button, click. Let me see something real quick. All right, so we're going to grab set property. We want to grab the light value right here. And then we're going to set that to text. So it displays the information as text. And then we're going to use the light sensor.value block out here. So we're saying when you click the update button, set the property for light value and show it as text for the lights. Whoop. All right, light sensor value. There we go. Run. We update 331. So I'm going to use my cell phone to shine a light on it, and right, shining a light at my circuit playground. And when I click that update again, ooh, oh yeah, 972. That makes a big difference. So take that away, 307, 304. I add that light from my phone, and it's like 3 times as big, right? Okay. So that works. Let's move on to bubble 4. All right, let's see. Continue. Version history, this one. And let's do it. It says make a thermometer app. While the light and sound sensors have just a raw value with the value property, the temperature sensor is a little bit smarter. Instead of temperature sensor value, there are properties temp sensor.f and temp sensor.c, which convert the raw input value to either Fahrenheit or Celsius. Do this. Make a simple thermometer app that reads in values from the temperature sensor. Let me move myself. Your app can display the temperature in either Fahrenheit or Celsius or both. Using design mode, okay, so we need to switch over to design mode. Create a button for updating and a label to display the temperature. Okay, so let's make a button. Let's make it a little bigger. And let's call it temp btn. In the text, we'll say get the temp. Let's make that text a little bigger. Font size. There we go. I chose a font size of 24 for that. And then, and a label. So let's pull a label out here. And I'm going to make this text pretty big because this is what I want to display the temperature. So I'm going to put, this is going to be temp label. And we're going to say temp here. We're going to want to center that, increase the font size, text alignment, center. There we go. And let's see. Let's go even bigger with the font size, which means we need to make this box bigger. Let's get back to the middle. Okay. Add an event handler. So we're going to go back to code up here. Add an event handler to respond to your update button being clicked. So we need an event. So on event, temp button clicked, set property of the temp label text, and we need to find the temp sensor for F. Temp sensor Fahrenheit. There it is. And so when I run it and we get the temp, it's 77 degrees in this room. Whew, that's a little bit warm. 75.2. I wonder which is actually correct. Hopefully 75.2. Okay, so now I kind of want to set up another event handler so I can read it in Celsius too. So UI controls, let's do another on event. And I'm going to actually go over to design, and I'm going to do another button. We'll put it down here. We'll make it bigger. And this one's going to be, what did I name that one? Temp button. We'll call this one Celsius button. And we'll just say in Celsius, question mark. And we'll make that text bigger. I think we chose 24 for the other one, so we'll match that. And text alignment centered already. Good. Okay, and I'm going to raise this up. I'm going to raise this up. And I'm going to put another label down here. What was the font size for that? 31. So we'll do 31 for this one. And this will be Celsius label. And on the text, we'll do temp in Celsius. All right. Not the best looking thing I've ever seen, but it works. All right. Boop, 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 boom. Let's go back to code. So for this on event, we're going to say Celsius button clicked, set property of the Celsius, or not temp label, but Celsius label to text, and we're going to grab the temp sensor C value from that. So we're going to run it. Let's get the temp in Fahrenheit, and in Celsius, it's 25. All right. And if I hold my, let's see what happens if I hold my thumb over the temperature sensor on the device. If it changes very much. So I'm a little bit warmer than the room. Probably a good thing. Okay. That's pretty cool. And let's go to bubble 5, shall we? All right, on this one, make a prediction. Read the code in this program and make a prediction below. What do you think this program will do when you run it? So we've got on line 1, variable redness. So we're making a variable here called redness. Sound sensor says scale 0 to 255. That's interesting because 0 to 255 is the RGB range. Onboard event, sound sensor data. So it's going to be on the event that the sound sensor is getting some data. So which the sound sensor will get data as soon as we start running this program. Redness gets math.round sound sensor value. Set property, screen 1, background color, redness. Okay, so I think the screen, okay, so the screen is going to be varying shades of red depending on the sound sensor value readout. Oops. Sound sensor dot value readout. So that's my prediction. Let's run it. Okay, yeah. So does it update automatically while I'm thrumming here? Very slightly. Let's see. There you can see the changes. Okay, I think I located the sound sensor on here. Yeah, now you can see it as I blow onto the device. So let's go to bubble 6. Continue. Okay, data event. Let me version history mine. Each of these analog sensors emits a special event called data, which occurs every time new data comes in from the sensor. Using this event, you can rewrite the first program you worked on in this lesson so that it continually updates. Do this. Create an event handler to respond to sound sensor's data event. Move the existing code into your event handler. So as it gets data, so we need to use onboard event. We're from here, we're using the sound sensor data because we're collecting data from it. So now sound sensor text, sound sensor value. That should work, right? Yeah, so now if I blow on it, the readout goes nuts, right? If I hold my hand over it, it should stabilize quite a bit. Yeah, and if I take my hand off, it's a slightly bigger range. If I talk directly into it, you can see it changing a bit. But you can see the most change with this when you blow into it. Reset. So let's go to the next bubble, bubble 7. Okay, version history, start over. Now, the data event is fine if you don't mind your code running constantly, but sometimes that's not the most efficient solution to your problem. The sensor change event only fires if the sensor value has changed since the last reading, which can make sure your program isn't running code when it's not necessary. Do this. Using the provided event handler, write a program that buzzes the buzzer and updates temp value whenever the temperature sensor reading changes. Okay, and then place your thumb over the temp sensor to get it to change and see how your program responds. All right, so that's definitely onboard event. I'm glad that's already out here. Temp sensor change. So we need a set property in here, and we're going to set it to the temp value here. I want that to read out as text, and then out here we're tying that value to temp sensor F. And then we also want the buzzer to go off every time the temperature changes. So let's find the buzzer. All right, buzzer.frequency. There we go. Again, so I think, what was it? The first part is frequency. The second part is duration. So the duration will be short. Frequency about 500, I think, is like around medium, I would think. Okay, so let's run it. Oh yeah, you hear that. So every time that temperature is changing by even small amounts, we're getting that buzz sound. So let me put my thumb on it like it asked me to. See if that does anything. Will it stabilize? Not really, and I let go of it now. Where's the camera? There it is. That gets annoying. That's going to be a fun one to run in class. All right, let's see. Let's finish. Continue. We're on bubble 8. And on bubble 8, it says, by default, a sensor's change event fires every time the sensor value changes at all, even by 1. The light and sound sensors are constantly fluctuating, so you probably want the change event to be a little less responsive. Probably if I don't want my buzzer going off constantly. The threshold property allows you to set how much a sensor should change before considering a change event. So setting sound sensor.threshold gets 100 would cause the sound sensor's change event only to trigger if its value increased or decreased by at least 100. Do this. This app changes the background color of the screen whenever the sound sensor value changes, but we want to only respond to big changes in volume, like a loud noise. Use the sound sensor.threshold block to fix it. Okay. So it says add a sound sensor.threshold block before the event handler. So we've already got our event handler here, onboard event, sound sensor, change, set property screen 1 background color. Okay, so the background color is going to change every time to a random RGB value. And that string probably goes all the way out to the end. Let's make sure. Well, I can't skip over there, but Okay, so let's get started. So we need to go into circuit drawer and sound sensor threshold. There it is. It says to put it above the event handler or before it. Test out how different threshold values impact the change event. So let's start with something small like 5. And this is the sound sensor. So let's run it. Oh, okay. Now we're getting some colors. So if I drum on my desk, see if that makes any difference. Not much. Let's see if I talk directly into it. Oh yeah, that's changing it a lot. So the sound sensor is working. So at 5, it's stabilized there. So when I talk near it, it changes a bunch. Let's see if we can increase this and make it harder to change the color. So run. And then if I'm talking directly into it, it is changing quite a bit still. Let's see about 15. Run. Is it changing a lot now? Sort of. Okay. Let's go to 20. See what happens at 20. Let's run. Is it changing a bunch? It's not changing at all. I have to talk a little louder with this one. Okay. Let's try 30. We're talking directly into it. Okay. Let's try 50. See if that one changes very often. Okay, talking into you now. All right. Blowing into it then. All right, 50 makes it not change at all. So let's go back down to 40. See, we set run. We're talking directly into it, and it's still changing. Okay, we'll leave it at 40. Finish, continue. Bubble 9. And I'm going to version history mine. Because when you start here, you will have a blank workspace. Yeah, let's keep going. Okay, so displaying sensor readings in color. In the earlier prediction level, you saw how the set scale method can convert the full range of sensor readings 0 to 1023 into a range that can be used for RGB values 0 to 255. Let's build on that idea to make an app that can communicate the current value of all three analog sensors with a single color. To start, we just need to set the sensor scales correctly. Don't worry about actually setting the color of the background yet. So step one is using the sensor.setScale block. Set each of the light and sound sensors to the right scale for an RGB color channel. Okay. All right, so let's go to circuit. And in this drawer, we need to find each of the sensor.scale blocks. So here, okay, here's sound sensor set scale. And there's supposed to be a light sensor set scale because it's asking for each light and sound sensor. Am I missing it in the drawer? There's light sensor. Oh, there it is, light sensor. Okay, so the RGB range is 0 to 255. So we'll leave the first value alone and just set both of those to 255 in the second part, giving it that range. And then we're going to create a variable for each of the three colors and assign each one to the value of a different sensor. Okay. So there's a hint here. Order matters. You need to set the scale of the sensor before checking its value. Okay, so we set the scale. Let's go to variables. We're going to set these variables up. So we're going to grab 3 of them. And each of these we're setting to one of red, green, or blue. And then what do we need to do? Assign each one of these to the value of a different sensor. Okay, so back in the circuit drawer, I remember seeing these like light.value. Okay, yeah, so here's sound sensor.value. There's light sensor.value, and there should be one more. Temp sensor.f. Yep. Okay, so we're setting red to the sound sensor, green to the light sensor, and blue to the temp sensor right now. And then it says use console.log to test that your variables are in the correct range. Okay, so console.log is in the variables drawer. So we'll grab 3 of these. And then for each of these, we need to tie the variable to them. So red, green. Wait, no, that's not how to set that up, I don't think. Let's try it. Red, green, blue. Run. Okay, yeah, so I want the values to be in there. So maybe if we go to math, I think this will make it read out correctly. So let me reset this. And here we'll say red, whoops, erd. Let me get my cord off of my keyboard so I can type, and off of my mouse so I can move my mouse. Okay, red, green, blue. So it should say red, green, blue down here, plus these values, right? So maybe I need to say red, green, blue, like that. If I run it, okay, yeah, there we go. Now it's giving me 130, and that means the sound sensor value is 130. Green is telling me that the light is 38 and temp in the room is 77. Okay, so that's working. Let's finish and continue. Bubble 10. Now that your sensor data is in a scale that works for RGB, you can go about setting the screen color. All right. Do this. Add a set property block. All right. So we're already in UI controls. So let's grab a set property block. Not sure where to put it at the moment. And set it to change the screen's background color. So screen 1, background color. Add an RGB block to the last parameter of set property. Okay, so that's easy. The RGB block is already in UI controls. So RGB, and I'm going to take this last parameter out. So red, green, blue. Tying those variables that we've established and telling it that this variable gets the sound sensor value, this variable gets the light sensor value, this variable gets the temp sensor value. So we should see this background change. Run. Okay, cool. So, and we still get our debug console information down here. So if I shine a light at this thing with my phone and then run reset, yeah, it changes the color quite a bit. Lights away from it, lights over it. Cool. So remember we set the light sensor value to green. So the green is going to change a bunch, right? So green 240 correlates to that color. You're getting that readout. Now green is only 34. It's not getting a lot of light. Now I put my light on it, and green gets almost all the way up to 255 with the light from my cell phone. Neat. All right, let's finish and continue. All right, bubble 11, the last bubble. This sensor to color app isn't super useful if it only sets the color once when you start the app. You can use the sensor's data event to make your app continually update the background color every time the value changes. Move your set property block into an event handler for one of the sensors to make the app update continually. Okay, so let's see. We need an on event block then. And I'm taking this and putting it in that on event or onboard event. And I'm going to set it to the light sensor because that's the easiest to mess with. And then I'm going to use data so that it constantly changes. So let's run it. And here's my light. Oh, why isn't this working right? Event is defined. Doesn't seem to be updating the way I intended it to. Let's see. What's my problem? Oh, you know what? I bet I need to put all of this into this event handler. Now let's try it. Oh, we've got errors. Okay, let's just get rid of this console log. So now reset run. Uh-oh. Now what's going on? Look at this readout down here in the debug console. It's telling me a bunch of stuff. So let's see. Nothing. Reset. Let me figure out what's going on. Just a sec. So I actually figured out what the problem was fairly quickly. So I have this set, the set property up here in the code before I'm setting the values of red, green, blue, and it's reading red, green, blue here. So that's why I'm getting tons of error codes constantly, because it's constantly trying to read that data. If I move my set property down here to the bottom of this onboard event, then it works, right? So if I shine my light on this or around it, you can see the color changing now. So let me show you what I'm doing. So here's my circuit board. I'm just moving my light around like this, and you can see on the app what that's doing to the color on the screen. That's pretty cool. All right, so I guess that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This is pretty fun, playing with the sensors on the circuit playground.